Imagine this. You're a herpetologist in the year 2000. You're on an expedition keeping track of the populations of various animals in Pekalongan from the Java island in Indonesia. You make note of each animal you find. Then, in the mud, you see something moving. No, it can't be. You think to yourself, I must be mistaken. You walk closer and lift it out of the dirt. In your hands, you see an anomaly, an animal thought extinct since the 1870s. All anyone had ever seen of this evasive species was a single dried specimen. Everybody gave up on the search decades ago, but here it is, right in your hands. This was the story of the Javan caecilian in 2000. Nobody knew a thing about this animal, and although we still don't really know much, we at least know that they are not extinct. In fact, their population numbers are so high that you could say they are at least concern. In fact, that's what the IUCN Red List says, that they are in least concern, which, I mean, from extinct to least concern, that's a huge jump to make. I don't know if any other species have made such a large jump. I mean, other than also similarly barely documented species, of course. The Javan caecilian story is actually quite similar to that of many other fossorial amphibians like it. The purple frog, for instance, the Mexican burrowing toad, also for instance, the South American caecilian, one might even say. They spend their whole life underground and only come up during the monsoon season, specifically to mate, and then they go back down. No wonder we never see them. But real quick, before we talk about anything else, let's first outline what exactly a caecilian is. As we understand it, there are three orders of amphibians. There's Anura, which is frogs and toads, Urodela, which is salamanders and newts, and Gymnophiona, which is caecilians. The easiest way to describe caecilians would be that they're to amphibians what snakes are to reptiles. They're limbless, they're earless, and if the public knew as much about caecilians as they did about snakes, then they would probably be just as feared as snakes are. But thankfully, everyone still thinks they're worms, which people, I guess, also hate. Sorry, caecilians. You're not going to catch a break today. The Javan caecilian, also known as the marsh caecilian, and Ichthyophis hypocyanus, as their name suggests, is native to the island of Java. As such, the Javanese name for them is Ulo Duvel, which is the name for caecilians, or Sicilia, as they're called in general. Java just so happens to be where the largest concentration of Indonesia's population resides. Because of this, a majority of the land, 2/3 of it in fact, is designated agricultural, specifically wet rice paddies. Javan caecilians can typically be found swimming through the muddy roots of a rice crop, eating any worms and insects that they come across. Their tunnels are shallow below the surface, and sometimes in lakes and rivers too. You can find them feeding off of little fish in both their larval stage and their adult life. Yes, larval stage. No, I know. If they look like this as adults, what could their larval stage look like? Well, don't get your hopes up. They look like this on the far right. At least I think that's what they look like. It's kind of cute, but why is it smiling like that? As you can see, juveniles have external gills, much like an ocelot. Similarly, they are also primarily aquatic in this stage of life. As such, they are unfortunately vulnerable to pesticides that are sometimes found in the rice paddies of Indonesia. Additionally, fishermen often go to rivers and ponds the Javan caecilian live in, but not intentionally. They're not fishing for caecilians, of course. The fishermen are fishing for the native species of fish. They're fishing for eels. And although Javan caecilians are often caught as bycatch, the biggest threat in this regard is the route that fishermen use. For that, we're gonna have to talk about plant poisons. That's right, you didn't think we're talking about plant poisons today, but we sure are. Let me tell you about plant poisons. Okay, the roots that fishermen use in Java, in Guyana, and some Polynesian islands as well, is called Daris elliptica. It's also called the East Asian Daris, or tuba plants. Not to be confused with the neem tree, which is different and native to India, but its roots are also used for fishing and general anesthetizing of fish. We'll get to that. Either way, neem trees, they're used in India for the extraction of the compound azadirachtin. Azadirachtin is essentially used to prevent bugs in the larval stage from growing up. It is extremely potent. So much so that if you place even just a leaf or a branch from the neem tree somewhere, as long as it has as much as 0.001 ounces of azadirachtin in it, it will mess with the hormone ecdysome, making it near impossible to metamorphosize and molt. Uh-oh. That's why it's especially bad for moth and butterfly larvae. So, that's neem. But what about tuba plants? Well, tuba plant roots contain rhodotone, which stuns and effectively anesthetizes fish. Uh-oh. While killing any parasites in their body. In fact, this is so effective against fish because of their gills. As soon as a fish bites onto the root, it goes straight through their gills and through their trachea. In doses as small as 11%, it can be lethal. So you can imagine how dangerous it would be for a little baby caecilian and an adult caecilian as well. Not only because azadirachtin affects similar bodies in caecilians as it does for insects in preventing larval metamorphosis, but also because of the tuba plant's stunning effects. Stunning, not in a good way. So as it stands, that's their largest threat, other than the general pesticides that farmers tend to spray on their rice crop. Additionally, and this is only tangentially related, tuba plant poison, despite generally being harmless to mammals because of the tiny window of toxicity that it has to kick in, and it taking a long time for it to be metabolized into our bodies, is associated with higher rates of fishers and farmers who use it developing Parkinson's disease. Uh-oh. It's hard to tell whether or not caecilians can develop Parkinson's. They haven't told us, but the fact that they die soon after coming into contact with tuba plant roots, not a good sign. In terms of breeding behaviors, it is thought that on the tail end of monsoon season, they lay their eggs. The babies likely hatch and metamorphosize prior to dry season's concluding. Because of the Javan caecilian babies are primarily aquatic, which is quite out of the ordinary for a lot of caecilians, we can assume that they don't engage in the typical caecilian, let's say, parenting style. What is the caecilian parenting style? Oh, you don't know? Well, you're in for a treat. And not the same treat as a lucky few baby caecilians get to take part in their lifetimes. Basically, their mothers secrete a substance akin to milk through their maternal vent, which is, of course, in their cloaca or connected to their cloaca. And that milk contains all of the necessary proteins and vitamins that a baby caecilian would need to grow up nice and big and strong. And actually, the caecilian species that do produce milk tend to have a smaller amount of time that it takes for the babies to finish growing up. So the milk is very beneficial. Oh, and you're gonna like this. So you know how in a lot of mammalian species, when a baby is hungry, they let their mother know by crying? Well, caecilians do the same thing. Of course, it's not the same sort of, I guess, degree of volume that babies do, human babies at least, but they do make a cooing sound. Specifically, they make clicking sounds, which then causes their mother to just lactate, which is very funny. I have not heard it. Oh my god, would I like to hear it? Holy shit, I would like to hear that, please. Although the milk that a lot of caecilian species excrete, and maybe the Javan caecilian, but we don't know yet, although that's definitely interesting, it's not all in terms of the potential parenting styles that caecilians can take up. Some other species of caecilian within the Herpelidae family, during the gestation of the mother's eggs, they also begin developing an outer layer of skin that has all of the nutritional benefits of the milk that some other caecilian species do, except it's an outer layer of skin that, as you might be able to guess, when the babies are born, will slowly eat away off the mother. And the growing a new skin, strategy has been known to make the babies grow 5 times faster than otherwise. Yes, they also found this to be true in the Siphonoidae family, whose evolution diverged from the Herpelidae family a long time ago. The fact that they still share this practice means maybe the Javan caecilian does as well. I mean, I especially feel that it's more plausible for the growing an outer layer of skin technique to probably be more accurate for the Javan caecilian, just because if they are primarily aquatic, then milk is probably going to dissipate within the water. That's assuming that it's water soluble, which I'm not entirely sure on, but probably. I mean, if you look at other, like, mostly aquatic dwelling species, like whales, for instance, who do secrete milk, cetacean milk as a whole has the texture of toothpaste so that it doesn't dissolve as quickly. So as a result, you could understand how a Javan caecilian baby, if it does try to suckle some of the milk, that's not a very efficient way of getting any of the milk to, because a lot of the milk is going to dissolve in the water. However, although the milk may be water soluble, the outer layer of skin on a mother caecilian is not water soluble because it's skin. Therefore, it's much more efficient in terms of transporting the proper dietary resources that a baby needs to survive. But we also haven't actually seen a baby Javan caecilian partake in any of these practices. We're just assuming. So maybe they do a secret third thing that we have yet to know about. And if that ever does come to light, I'll be the first one to know. Hopefully. I would love to know. Yeah, I mean, there's a big chance that they just don't do either of these, and maybe they don't even care for their young at all. We don't know. Based on the density of individuals being so low, and seriously, I'm talking only one individual for every 4 miles. And that's just the places they've been spotted before, too. We can infer they're likely quite territorial with one another. This is quite divergent from most caecilian species, which will straight up just live communally in groups of 2 to 4, like, for instance, the South American caecilian. As for what they eat, the theory is that their diet is within the confines of usual caecilian eating behaviors. That is to say, worms, other amphibians, larvae from the burrows of other Javan caecilians. That's right, cannibalism, and tiny bugs. Javan caecilians are already quite small, so they really will eat any animal that's just smaller than their mouth. And that's it. That's all we know about the Javan caecilian. I like them, and I hope you like them as well. It's starting to rain, so I should wrap this up. But, yeah, that's all from me. Okay, see you next time. Goodbye. Bye.